go. There we go. So false start again. Hey, I'm trying my best. Let's go again. Right. Welcome. You're here for a Lunch and Learn webinar from Inclusive Change. And today we are talking about reasonable adjustments. And when we've called this session Red Flags or Reasonable Adjustments. A lot of it comes from the work we've been doing for the past 5 years now as Inclusive Change, and before that also, but particularly in the past year or so, where we're being asked lots of questions about, but how do we make decisions about reasonable adjustments? What does that mean? What is a reasonable adjustment and what is reasonable? So we're going to explore part of that and most of that in the next 30 minutes or so. So as long as I can press the right button, a quick introduction. There's not going to be a whole list of, hey, we do this, we do that. Okay. If you want to find out more about Inclusive Change, go and have a look on our websites. My business card is on the screen, so you can either click it with your phone. I don't know if you can actually click it on the screen. I don't know whether I've put that tech in place. But I have a mantra that I say at most sessions that I go to, which is that change begins with passionate people who have a vision. And quite frankly, we have vision and we have passion. And that is that we want to build the future of work with neurodiversity in mind. We don't want the next generations coming into the workplace to experience the same things that others have felt in the past generations. Bear with me because I've done something very silly and I haven't put do not disturb on my phone, which means sometimes you're going to get people calling. But we're going to stop that. So change begins with passionate people who have a vision. That's me. You can find out more online if you'd like to by looking at the business card or going to our website and finding out more. Becca, would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself and why you're passionate about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I am Becca. I work for Lucy and the team at Inclusive Change as support operations specialist, which is a role of many hats. I do many things, but the main ones are mentoring and coaching neurodivergent adults. So the quote that Lucy has just asked me to go back. If you couldn't tell, I have ADHD. So I very quickly forget what people have told me verbally. But the reason that this quote resonates with me is because actually, when we think about people as a whole, all of us are neurodivergent. Like, it doesn't mean that we, all have the same brains, etc. And that's actually a good thing. Like, diversity of thought and diversity of brains is better for everybody, not just in work, but in society widely. So that's what I think of when I think of people that have a vision, because everybody has a different vision and we should celebrate that. So yeah, if you want to hear more about what I do, you can email me later. But lovely to meet everybody.
Absolutely. You might want to pop any contact details into the chat if you'd like to. So it says a few ground rules. That feels like I'm being really strict. But a few things to talk about before we get started. Neurodiversity is a big topic. It covers a broad range of experiences. Mostly, we will be focusing in this session on ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia. We recognize that there is a wide variety of neurodivergence to speak about, but in 30 minutes, we can't do everything. So we kind of focus in on those key areas. Ideally, this is a space where everyone should feel safe and respected when exploring these topics. And any questions, any thoughts, if you want to seek clarification around the language you use or the things we talk about, please pop it in the chat or please feel free to email us, okay? We're okay with taking challenge. We might have RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. However, we know it's part of our job to learn by listening to people and listening to feedback. So if you do need to do that, you can. Bear with me. There we go. This session's around about 30 minutes and we'll have a 15-minute Q&A. So if you need to leave by 12:30, we should be done and we can say goodbye. Cameras on or off, we really don't mind. In fact, I told you right at the beginning, I'm not looking at my camera, okay? I can't see who else is on the screen because I'm focusing in on what I need to talk about and what we need to share with you. Feel free to fidget, doodle, move, do whatever you need to, okay? But you may want your camera off if you're going to do that kind of stuff, okay? Totally okay. It's okay to not interact. It's okay to be quiet, but we do love a bit of interaction. So we do use the chat, and we might ask for people to drop stuff in the chat. Like now, if you want to introduce yourself and say who you are and share your email because you want to network online, please do that. Not a problem at all. Stay on mute if you're not talking, and certainly in the Q&A, we'll switch off our recording, so any conversation then can be shared. We won't be having a break, by the way. We won't have time for that. And my next one, you will get a copy of the recording. All right, we will send that to you. We will send it to you probably tomorrow by the time it's come down and been rendered and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now let's get into it. So what are we going to talk about now for the next 22 minutes? All right. The first thing I'm going to say is this is not another neurodiversity awareness session. Okay, we are not going to be spending time talking about different types of neurodivergence and what does neurodiversity mean, etc., etc. We have other webinars, other things, other links we can send you that will share that information. This is going to take things a bit further. We're going to be talking about why do we need to talk about reasonable adjustments, and why now? What's happening and why is it important? We're going to explore a little bit about whether a reasonable adjustment might be risky or might be reasonable. And we'll talk about some real cases and some real strengths. So it's a lot to get through, so I'm going to crack on. So as I said a moment ago, awareness sessions are quite often the thing that people start with. And I'd love a hands up in the chat, actually, or a comment in the chat. How many of you have been to neurodiversity awareness sessions already? How many of you have done a neurodiversity awareness session? You can just say yes or put a hands up in the chat. That would be fantastic. And then we kind of get a bit of an idea of where we're coming from. And if you need an awareness session, we can do that another time. But today, we're going to move from awareness, which I talk about downloading the manual and never opening it. How many of you have downloaded a manual for a thing and not opened it? And you think, yep, I know what I'm doing. Just recently, I bought a new fridge. I've moved house. Don't know if I've told anybody this. Yeah, moved house. The people who know me know I tell everybody regularly. We bought a new fridge, and it's one of those that's got a water dispenser on it. And we got it in, and we put it on, and I went, oh, look, let's do the water. And so we poured the water in, but I hadn't read the manual, and neither had my husband. And the water just absolutely poured out of the front of the fridge, all over the floor, all over the dog. I hadn't read the manual. I thought I knew what I was doing. And this is kind of where we're coming from. We think we've read the manual, or we think we've got the manual, we think we've done awareness, and we think we're okay, we've got this. But actually, we're going to take it a bit further. So yes, I can see people have said that they've been to awareness sessions. So that's fantastic. I know we don't have to repeat too much. So let's get into why do we need to talk about this now? Okay. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in recruitment. There's a lot going on in education. And what we're seeing quite often are talent shortages. Talent shortages where we're saying, organizations are saying and industries are saying, we can't get enough staff. We can't get enough people through the door. Couple that with a whole lot of neurodivergent people who are unemployed. A much higher rate of unemployment of autistic people. The Buckland report that came out last year, that states 30% of autistic people are in any form of employment. Just 30%, compared to around about 80% of general population, or even it's about 56-ish%, I think, of disabled people in employment. So there are talent shortages out there. So we need to look at different avenues and different talent pools. We've got things like burnout going on. People are burning out. They're not feeling well in work. Neurodivergent people in particular struggle with well-being at work. It is absolutely documented that neurodivergent people struggle very much in work, and most people don't disclose A, their neurodivergence, or B, that they may be struggling. 3, the cost. Okay, there are 2 reports that have come out in the past week. One, Keep Britain Working, which is around this phrase, worklessness. I really don't like that phrase, but it's there. And the ADHD task force have also published a report basically saying that ADHD is underdiagnosed and undersupported within the community in general, but is certainly the case in work. There is a lot that I could talk about that particular report, but I know I won't have time. And if you want more, drop a message and we'll send you a link to a blog that I've written about it so you can find out more. And then the last one, sustainability. Being able to recruit future generations. Gen Z in particular are really putting their hands up and starting to say, hey, I would like to be supported in the workplace. What are you going to do to support me? These are my needs. Can you help me? And my flippant take on the slide there around Gen Z who want purpose and flexibility, don't we all? Decent snacks. Yes, thank you. And the skip, the fast forward, if our onboarding, if our systems and our online training isn't as slick as a Netflix documentary, then many people, many Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who I've been reading about today in particular, they're just going to scroll on past. They're not going to join us. If your website isn't set up in a way that gives them what they need, we might miss out on that talent. Becca, I'm going to put you on the spot there. Is there anything that you'd add around at this point before we move on to when HR says no? What happens when reasonable adjustments are not taken into account? So Becca, anything that you'd add here about why we need to talk about this now?
Yes, 100%. So I have a bit of a unique perspective in that I worked in recruitment for 3 years before I joined Inclusive Change, cybersecurity recruitment specifically. And we always were told the same thing. There's not a talent shortage. There is a lack of opportunity for people to get into those opportunities. And that's for many myriad of reasons. You know, the reason I say that is not to put anyone on the spot or make anyone feel like, whoa, actually, we're doing everything that we can. Why, it's not about that at all. But it's not necessarily that there is a talent shortage. There's plenty of people out there who are more than capable of doing this particular work, whatever that might be. You know, in cybersecurity, especially, it's really important to have diverse and non-lateral thinking in order to keep the country safe, right? If we're thinking big shiny
Absolutely.
donut in Cheltenham. So yeah, I would say that it's about how we get people into those roles, as opposed to there is specifically a talent shortage. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, definitely. And if anybody else wants to add in the chat, whether or not you think that this resonates with you, are there reasons why you think we need to talk about this now? And why you're on this call today? What do you want to get out of this webinar? What is it that brought you here today? We'd love to know because we do love a bit of interaction. Just say it. Just say it. It validates us. That's all I can say. Right. I'm going to move on to the next piece here. So we've talked about why we need to talk about this now. My first slide here in the next section, which is where we're going to start talking about this thing called reasonable adjustments, this phrase, and the language that we use. And what happens when HR or anyone, it's not just HR. And actually, sometimes it can be your line manager. Sometimes it can be somebody else making that decision and not just HR. It can be your director. It can be the boss. Yeah. Because we might not know the answers. We might not know how to adapt. But when we start saying no, what we end up with is burnout. Okay. Burnout and the Keep Britain Working report is costing us health absence or absence because of health in the workplace is costing the country millions, if not billions. Carly, I can't remember the exact number, and I can remember 212, but I think it's 212 billion pounds being lost through productivity because people are not well and are not in work. Burnout is real and it's happening. And burnout happens with neurodivergent people in quite different ways to ways we've been traditionally thought to expect from our employees and our teams. The next thing that might happen, or another thing that happens, and you notice I like a bit of an alliteration. The B's are in there. All right. We've got burnout, brain drain. All right. People leave. They say not sticking around. So we're not able to keep, to recruit and retain our top talent. And we need great talent to keep our organizations moving forward. So brain drain is our best people might end up leaving. And breakdowns. Breakdowns in terms of communication, breakdowns in terms of relationships, breakdowns in terms of individuals ourselves. All of those things kind of happen when we are not supporting people and not putting reasonable adjustments in place. Anything you'd add there just for a very short couple of seconds, Becca?
Yes, and I will keep it short. But yeah, I would agree with all of those things. And I would especially say that for neurodivergent people, burnout is probably the biggest like barrier that we come up against. And it's really hard to spot when somebody is masking, which is very common for us as neurodivergent folk. Has anyone heard of masking before? Because if not, I'll pop a definition in the chat.
Yes,
Um,
please. Chat. Brilliant.
Amazing. But yes, I would say that burnout is definitely something that resonates with me 100%. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's not fun,
Yeah.
wouldn't recommend.
And we end up moving jobs. You and I have talked about your career and the jobs that you've had, and you will leave a job because of burnout.
Yeah, yeah. Before I had my diagnosis, I never had the language or the understanding for that either. But then, you go through a bit of a process of understanding and re-examining everything through an ADHD lens. But it 100% started to make sense
Yeah.
once I had that language and was like, oh, actually, it wasn't because I was lazy. It wasn't because I wasn't being productive enough. It was just because of my brain. So yeah, I'm more than happy to have a
Thank
chat with
you.
people afterwards.
Cool. Don't forget, we've got 15 minutes for Q&A, so we will be able to cover those kind of things after 12:30. All right.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, bearing in mind where we are, we need to move forward. Okay. And I'm now going to talk a little bit about the Equality Act. All right. So the Equality Act 2010 is our friend. It's our friend if we're an employee. It's our friend if we're a HR manager. It's our friend if we're a supervisor, a leader, or a founder or a CEO. The Equality Act 2010, there are some very specific protections around disability within the Equality Act. And these protections aren't necessarily afforded to every other protected characteristic under the Equality Act. Now, two sections that I want to draw your attention to. One is Section 6. Section 6 defines disability. So I'll read out the information on the page. A disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on a person's ability to carry out day-to-day activities. Is there anywhere in that definition that it mentions a diagnosis? You can pop an answer in the chat if you like. And I will come back to that in a moment. But that definition under Section 6 is very important, okay, in terms of recognizing whether or not somebody has needs and that we need to then consider reasonable adjustments. And I'll just check the chat there. Thank you, Roxanne. No, there is no mention of diagnosis and diagnostic criteria within that definition. I could literally sit here for 3 hours just talking about Section 6 and Section 20 of the Equality Act. I've not got 3 hours. I've probably got about 3 minutes, okay? Because we've made this short and sharp. This is a free session where we are talking about this in the whole, okay? If you want more, you can absolutely get in touch with us and we'll talk to you about what other training we provide. But Section 20 here is the second section under the Act that I want to bring to your attention. Employers have a duty to make reasonable adjustments to make sure that disabled people are not substantially disadvantaged compared to those who are not disabled. This duty applies to both workers and job applicants. That's a big duty. And it's very difficult sometimes because when we're working with neurodivergent talent, when we are working with people who may not have disclosed to us, sometimes if we recognize it, if we can see the signs and the behaviors, not even sometimes actually, if we recognize and we see the behaviors and we think actually we could be working and supporting somebody here who is neurodivergent, we need to be thinking about Section 6 and Section 20. So we need to be thinking about what can we put in place to support our staff. And the question we always get asked is, what is reasonable? Guess what? There's no single definition. And that is what makes this whole conversation difficult sometimes. That is where we get to a point of, but what's reasonable for one person might not be reasonable for another. And for the next few minutes, we're going to explore that. So there being no single definition, it will depend on the context of the case. And there are a few pointers that generally you should be considering. So things like the effectiveness of the proposed adjustment in removing disadvantage. Sometimes the proposed adjustment might not be effective or useful at all. Health and safety is a massive, massive consideration. Health and safety pretty much trumps the Equality Act. And actually, if I was to look at this in a bigger piece, I would be saying we also need to look at the Health and Safety Act as well. We need to look at the practicability of making an adjustment, the affordability, and any potential disruption. And pretty much the size and resources of an employer will come into any decision that you have to make. This is part of the context in which you work. Okay. Becca, is there anything you would add at this point just on that around what is reasonable?
Yeah, it can sometimes be difficult to know what is actually available to people, because when you look at this, like, no single definition, like, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed and go, well, where does that leave me?
Yeah.
What am I able to get? And I would also say it's worth thinking about those people like me, late diagnosed ADHD, who didn't know what they needed. So oftentimes going to that person that you work with and saying what support has been helpful for you is hugely beneficial, but be prepared that they might come back and say, I'm not really sure. And there's going to have to be a bit of collaboration on that.
Absolutely. Co-production, collaboration, whatever you want to call it, is really important. And probably work-based assessment, a work needs assessment, whatever we want to call that, that's a really important piece to do. And quite often occupational health might not have the skills and knowledge and expertise to do that. So sometimes you need to look at experts and bring them in to support you to do that, because an individual probably, particularly if they're newly diagnosed, won't have the language, won't have the understanding, won't have the experiences to be able to say, yeah, this works for me. And that takes quite a bit of time to put in place.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got some examples. Oh, sorry, Becca, did you want to say anything?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just agreeing and nodding and humming.
Sorry, I can't see the screen, remember. That's fine. Right, so risky or reasonable? Okay. Sometimes I do this as a little bit of a quiz show, but I know that time isn't on our side. Risky or reasonable? Okay, you might want to put something in the chat. Yes or no? Risky or reasonable? Having cameras off in a meeting, what do you think? Risky or reasonable? Love to hear what you think about that one. Written instructions instead of just verbal instructions, risky or reasonable? And the last one, a fixed desk in a hot desk working environment, risky or reasonable? Now, there are some comments in the chat. I can see reasonable, yes. To me, these are all reasonable. You may need to think about whether or not other people and you yourself, if you're making decisions about this, feel discomfort, or whether a line manager might feel discomfort because they're being asked to give written instructions, because we're being asked to give somebody a fixed desk. Just because we feel discomfort does not mean it is risky. Martin, yes, cameras, depending on what will be done with the footage afterwards. Absolutely. Yeah, most of these, in fact, all of these I've put are reasonable. Okay. In our last few minutes, I want to give you some very quick strategies, and these are going to be super quick. You will get a copy of these slides and you will get a copy of this video, okay? And on this slide, we've got some examples of what might happen when HR says no. So for instance, and I'm going to take the bottom one because we're going to talk about that one in the next slide. If somebody asked for a fixed desk or predictable seating in a hot desk environment where for whatever reason, everybody's got a hot desk and we can't make any changes and we can't be unfair and give you a desk because quite often that would actually be one of the reasons why somebody would set it up, say that. Hot desking only, we've got space constraints. I can't do it for you. If I do it for you, I've got to do it for everyone. What that causes is everyday daily friction. There are extra stresses. You have to regulate if you have to go and choose a different desk each time. Somebody who has sensory overwhelm and sensory processing challenges will be struggling every day getting into the office and thinking, where am I going to sit? What am I going to do? You're then going to end up with things like late starts, reduced output, attrition, because they say, I can't do this job anymore. Literally because we weren't able to say yes to providing a fixed desk. So a strategy I'm going to recommend here is thinking about how we could make a decision on this. And in this instance, you've got a fixed desk request. Hot desking makes me anxious and I need a predictable space. We have a decision-making model called the Reasonable Adjustments Decision Model. We have thought about how we can make decisions and we have 6 steps to this model. The first would be that we would gather information from the employee, the manager, we would consult facilities, we would think about whether or not we can make changes. We gather all the information we need from all the different people we need, and then we assess what that need is. The need in this case is anxiety and concentration impacted by the unpredictability. I could literally talk for 2 hours just on this case and why we need to think about it. Stop me. We'll take the options and think about what we could do. Could we have a predictable rota of where you'll be sitting in certain times in certain places? Could we have a dedicated desk? Could we look at some hybrid flexibility? What can we do? And then out of those options, we make a choice and we implement it. We record what we've implemented, yeah, and we review. And that is our decision-making model. It's based on evidence. It's based on the information we have, how we make that decision, and making sure that we consult as many as the people that we need to. If you want more information about our decision-making model, do get in touch with us because we can share more about that. And lastly, the last bit I want to talk about is a 4-step model around thinking about reasonable adjustments and what you might need to do as a leader or a manager or as a HR manager. Our first step is to recognize and spot the barriers. So making sure that you've had training, making sure that you understand if somebody's late and unfocused or overwhelmed, ask yourself, is this a support need? Or what can I do? Before you label it as poor performance and you stop and you investigate and you think about, can we think about this in different ways? And just because it makes us uncomfortable, could we be curious and find out more about why this is happening? Second step, ask, don't assume. This means that we quite often will have to make a psychologically safe space where people can express what they need without needing to prove a diagnosis. Remember, we talked about Section 6 of the Equality Act. We don't need a diagnosis certificate to validate. We need to think about need, okay? And you can ask people, for instance, what helps you do your best at work? Are there any barriers that I can remove for you? You're not asking people to disclose. You're not waiting for them to disclose. You're immediately saying what helps, what could help, what barriers can we remove? And I'm very mindful that I've gone over by a minute. Just let me get through these last 2 points and then we'll be there to Q&A. The third point is adjust, don't excuse. So it's thinking about those reasonable adjustments that enable success. It doesn't mean we have to excuse underperformance, but we do need to think about putting in adjustments. They're not special favors, they're productivity tools for most people. And we wouldn't ask somebody who has poor eyesight to work without glasses. If I took my glasses off, I wouldn't be able to do this webinar. I just wouldn't. So I wear my glasses and they're there to help me. So somebody who's got ADHD, for instance, might not thrive in an overwhelming rigid environment. They're too stimulated. There's too much going on and they can't focus. So some examples could be things like written instructions, flexible breaks, and structured one-to-ones. You could even look at support workers via access to work. And my last point, number 4, lead, don't wait. Normalize flexibility for everyone. So individuals don't have to fight for inclusion. This is about universal design. And I'm sure in the Q&A in a moment, I'll ask Becca about universal design. And I know that she will have some fantastic things to say about that. So hold those thoughts, Becca. I'm coming back to you in a moment. If you can build a team where flexibility isn't earned, you don't have to get, you don't get it because you're a favorite or because you've worked here long enough. It's embedded. Everyone feels safe to ask. You'll spot those red flags early. You'll reduce burnout and you'll retain brilliant people. And don't assume that inclusion is somebody else's job. It's all of us. It's everything. It's everyone's role to think about. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up. So we've still got time for Q&A. For those of you that need to leave, please, I'm totally okay. Okay. Yes. We will probably turn the recording off in a moment because Q&A sometimes. Thanks, Andy. No problem. You will get that recording. We tend to turn our recording off for the Q&A, but I will try and keep a transcript going of some kind, so that we can have that and you don't actually, because people want to ask questions sometimes and not feel like you're being recorded. But if you want more from us, you will get some emails from us after this session. You can try our neurodiversity audit. We've got one on culture and environment, which is just 2 minutes. 11 questions, and you can quickly assess your strengths and see where you've got red, amber, green, where your RAG status might need a bit of improvement. And on that note, I'm going to move to any questions. Anything you want to ask and share, and I'm going to pause the recording. So I shall stop that there. Oh no, my screen sharing's paused. Oh, okay, all right. Let me go back to that. Let me stop my share. Technology, takes me everywhere. My last one is to stop the recording. So let's do that.